Hey there, everybody. How you doing, man? Just grooving out on the young rascals. And hey, how you doing? Happy Monday, as the snow starts to fly here. Good to see y'all. Wonderful, wonderful group here. I'll tell you, it's amazing. I think the knowledge, the depth of spirit, and it's a gathering of empaths, no doubt about it. So thank you for all of you joining. So good to see all of you. Man, all the moderators, thank y'all very much. Good to see you. And everyone else joining in the chat and watching. Hey, Jargo, good to see you. And Sasa, Peter, David, Blue Angel, Sabrina, hello, Kent Cook, Don, David Castle, good to see you. Saw you the other night with the Soul Tribe. Hey, David Barry. Very successful kickoff on thought on the Andromeda 7 portal. Hey, Posey, Spirit Woman, Colorado. Hey, Julianne Payne, good to see you. And Miss Lois, Cajun Queen, good to see you. Peter, Eyes of the Maelstrom, hello. Martin Heidi, good to see y'all. Susie Q, what's up? So, thought it was just a very good send off. Everyone here, Saturn Raindrops. Hello, how you doing, Dragon Soul Fox? Good to see you, and Deborah. Just so good to see everyone growing and blossoming out. Hey, Janice, good to see you. Deep Thoughts here now. Good to see you. What is that? Golf Z, good to see you as well. Deborah Truax and feeling just really mellow. Hey, Kelly, it's just a lot of mixed energies out there. It's crazy. Uh, yeah, I had fun there. I don't usually get in the chat room, but it was fun, David Barry. It was. Kent, good to see you. And so, cosmic ray alert. Thought I'd let you know right now. It's hitting us. It's going to be hitting us a lot more. So pretty soon we shall be wearing, hey, Lucky Stone, good to see you. Tinfoil hats, at least something to protect this up here, because it's already weird enough as it is. But when you start adding like cosmic rays into the situation, and they're getting more intense with more longevity, wow, drives people nuts. Particularly us. So, hey, heads up on that. Everyone, I'd like you to send out healing thoughts to Steve. I think it's Bo. He's going in for prostate biopsy. So, we're just going to send him positive thoughts. He participates in here. He's one of the community, and he's going in with no fear, as he wrote me. He speaks to his body, and but it runs in the family. We're going to talk in one of these shows about family curses. They exist, and Sarah Horton says she's got Rex's tinfoil hat. Yeah, that could work. We love Rex Bear. So, but getting back to the train of thought, it's like, well, gee, okay. Curses run, and they show up many times in repeating genetic issues. And I know there are other things. Hey, Ryan, thank you. It is a great series, and we're going to get into it here real quick. Hello, Delta Hook Set. Good to see you. Anyway, you've got to break them. If you don't, cause and effect. That's what it is. So, also wanted to say this to everybody here in the United States: there is no winner. No official government, the Electoral College has not declared a winner. The media They can do whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. But just because the media says that there's a winner, that is not the government. There is no declared winner by the Electoral College. And that is the critical thing. We've got to, if we're going to talk about this and be big boys and girls and not have, these mind reapers called the media, then we're going to have to just be honest with all of us. And the fact is, according to the United States Constitution, which hasn't been changed yet, there is no winner until all votes are certified. And then, and only then, when the Electoral College is convened, will there be a declared winner. Hey, Big Al, good to see you. So that's just the way it is, folks. And I'm telling you, hey, Regina, stay tuned. 2020 is not done with us yet. That's all I got to say. Let's see, tomorrow, Miss Trina and I on a second look, going to be talking, well, we'll have something by then. I have a thing already. Yeah, thanks, Kent. That's exactly. Hey, Suzanne, good to see you as well. Source frequency, hello, how are you? Yeah, so just deal with it. The facts don't care about your feelings. And yeah, I would agree. 2020. So I'm reading a couple of books, and we're going to get into this, and we'll get this. And by the way, on Wednesday, got Marsha Price and Tina Bop. Tina will be coming on, and we're going to be basically doing a wrap up on this book. And it's really interesting, folks, because I want to state something here for everybody. I don't tell anybody what to worship. I don't worship anything. Trying to get used to hey, Gaia, the whole idea of worshiping myself, since myself is the only evidence I have of anything outside this body. Also, when I teach, when we bring books out, it's about the knowledge, the Gnosis. And you can't be biased in how you look at knowledge. Folks, there is no good or bad. There's no God, there's no devil, there's no Lucifer, there's no Christ. These are all constructs. In fact, in this book here, I went back because I really, if you, we're going to study this one as he gets there. So this is the God virus. This book is heavy. It will cause you to have mind coitus. I mean, because it challenges some things. The fact is, hey, Robert V, how you doing, buddy? I've been waiting to see. Okay, there we go. Here's the premise, and there's sound foundation to this. The planet Earth, and we don't know how long this goes back. They theorize maybe millions of years, but there's a virus here, and it infects Homo sapiens. And this virus, the way that it works is that once it infects what we would call the soul, the cognitive thought process, then it begins to create these phantom needs. And one of those phantom needs is the belief that you have to worship a God. In order for you to be normal, and by the way, this is called the energetic war against humanity. Folks, this is I've been through this thing twice, and it's deep. It's deep. It's deep. I'm telling you, it's deep. And when you begin to consider what this virus does, it's a living virus, but it's not living as we would think on the physical plane. It lives in that multidimensional plane. And it causes us as human beings, Homo sapiens, to do some weird stuff. Ritualistic beliefs, separation of ideologies, because these all are like they're steroids for the emotions. I mean, right now you would have to literally be living under a rock. I don't even think a cave will save you. You know that the tensions are like whoop, 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 way up there. And this virus is feeding off of it. Now, let's parlay this into what we're reading about. So when you get over the fact, the one thing, and let me just finish, when I teach about like the Satanic Bible, I'm not telling you to worship Satan. Satan doesn't exist. And if it did, it exists within you. Each of us are our own Satan. Each of us are our own accusers. We don't need an imaginary made-up thing with horns. Each of us are, and that's what Satan means, the accuser. So just so we can get this kind of settled, because I had some conversation in some of the comments, and I get it. People are really, you start talking about Satan and you talk about Lucifer, it immediately 99% of the population go, ooh, oh, you're one of those, huh? No, I'm a seeker of truth. And I was awakened early this morning, couldn't go back to sleep. Boy, I just hate it when that happens. But when they talk, you listen. I think what we're going to find out, ladies and gentlemen, Soul Tribe members, the truth is, there is no truth. Not in this realm. This realm is dominated by deception. And by that foundation and premise alone, truth cannot exist in a realm of deception. And it's what drives us, many of us, to the edge at times. We can sense the grasping of truth. We just cannot hold on to it. It's ever elusive, and for good reason. I'm just reading some. I'm riding the bus, and people are going, "Yep, duality." Exactly. Duality is the definition of insanity. There is no right or wrong. There's no good or evil. There's no God or Satan. I mean, you because in this realm, and they're right open about it. This is the realm of deception, illusion. Hard to define what truth is. What I have found is that it seems to be truth is who's ever spouting it off as truth. And just because you got something written in a book that you say is old, don't mean a damn thing to me. I spent my 50 years in that mind trap. And the thing it is, it's self-conditioned mind control. Read your Bible every day. Read the Quran every day. Read your Holy Scriptures every day. Want to know why? You're self-programming yourself. And actually, as we get into this, and we may go to about 1:30 my time, what you are actually doing is that you are performing a self-initiation. They can't do it. Only you can. And that's what I was doing for 50 years. Every day reinforcing the self-initiation, making the confessions, making the proclamations. So when I read things like this, it's not difficult for me to grasp this, because this is what's actually happening already now. If you're into materialism and you're the shallowness of being in a coma and asleep, you look at the media as the source of truth. And it just validates my whole point to this. What they say is truth is a lie. But the problem is, even the lie is a lie. Because the lie is the truth and the truth is the lie. Whoa. Ariel says, I disagree. There exists objective truth, natural law, hermetic. But let's talk about those. Those are laws of nature. Didn't say that they didn't exist. I'm saying truth. What is it, truth, though, as serial waves? What is it that we're looking for? Because what you've just described, the micro and the macro, is duality. You just validated my point completely. I mean, really? I mean, if you have the micro, you have the the macro. You're just talking two ends of the spectrum. That's what the Hermetic law is about. The first law, as you know, the principle is that the universe is mental. So I guess, kind of as you see. But good point. This is why we have discussions. And this is the thing that we can exchange ideas. So if we have the Hermetic laws, are those truth? I guess one could argue that the Hermetic laws would not work in another plane. Because as I see the Hermetic laws, they're based on the reality or the realm of duality. Anyway, all right, let's get rolling. I hope no one found that anything. I hope we're all able to handle. Okay, let's get going. Every man, sooner or later, will have to choose one of only two paths, opposing and irreconcilable, open to him, fulfillment of his soul or fulfillment of the spirit. There is no third possibility. I don't know if I like that. Again, it seems like, if there's only the right or the left, well, but if we live in a three-dimensional reality, isn't there up and down? Not just right, left, up, down. I mean, I could go 360 degrees, but anyway, because we've heard the right-hand path and the left-hand path. The path of the right hand towards the demiurge means of perfection of the soul, or the path of the left hand towards the unknowable God by means of liberation of the spirit. The latter is what makes up the peculiar goal or objective of an initiation. And this is why there's only initiations of the soul or initiations of the spirit. The purpose of both is to facilitate the candidate's access towards destiny as he has chosen. It is important to know the main characteristics of both kinds of initiations in order to differentiate accurately between one and the other. Many people who are unaware of these details fall into traps which will lead them directly into the jaws of the demiurge. It is easy to make a mistake since there are disguises and falsifications to consider, as well as lack of books and information. And I guess this is where I'm coming at. These are incredible challenges. There are disguises and falsifications. in that realm of reality, I don't know how you would actually be able to hold on to truth. Let's say truth of the soul and truth of the spirit. But I still contend that even the Hermetic principles would only work in this realm. But it is easy to make a mistake since there are disguises and falsifications to consider, as well as the lack of books and information. Let us have a look at those things that is necessary to take into account to be able to reject the poison fruit offered to us by the servants of the demiurge. Boy, poison fruit. Some say that the metaphor, the allegory of the tree of knowledge is, in fact, it was a poison. Here's my whole thing on this. The problem that I see with the gods in this realm, none of them, if any religion accepts personal responsibility. There should never be even the thought of judgment. There should never be the thought of sin. There should never be any of these. Because if it wasn't for the one that created everything, then there would be no need. And then to blame your creation for your screw up, well, that's the epitome of being irresponsible for everything. I mean, if you can't man up and say, listen, I screwed up, man. I ain't got it figured all out. And yeah, I know you guys, you humans, you've had a tough time of it. But no, no, we get this whole judgment crap. Firstly, the objective of the initiations of the soul is the final merging with the demiurge. This is the prime importance. If someone talks to us about the union with God, losing oneself in God, the fusion of the individual consciousness with the one consciousness, Shamadai, the dissolution in the demiurge, well, we now know that we are dealing with a religion, a sect, or an esoteric movement with the demiurges which is behind it. Of course, the initiations that can be granted, there will be initiations of the soul and not of the spirit. On the other hand, in initiations of the spirit, the aim will never to be a fusion of any kind. Really was meditating on this early this morning. It's quite interesting. At the end of the path, when the total confrontation with the demiurge occurs, the initiate will have to resist and reject him, exclude him, and exclude himself forever. In these cases, it is not about the samadhi, but the kavala, absolute separation. But special kavala, not only total separation with respect to everything created by the demiurge. No, the real kavala inevitably includes total, absolute separation from this God, this creator. Actually woke my wife up saying this, and I knew I was in lucid dream state, but I found myself saying, I want nothing to do with you. I separate myself consciously, spiritually, totally from you and your damned creation. Leave me alone. You have no rule over me. I am no longer a part of your construct. We are separate. Got that from reading this book, I'm no doubt. And this is serious. I mean, what we're going to be getting into is the point. I mean, are you going to stay stuck in the belief systems of this realm with the evidence that's overwhelming that the creator of this realm is insane? And that there is no pleasing it. It can never be pleased with itself. It's corrupt. It's impure. As Lilith said, it's imperfect. It's half of perfection. The other half is total corruption. People don't like to think of God that away, do they? Secondly, in initiations which lead to the demiurge, the aim is to weaken the self of the aspirant and to push him to renounce to it. Every religious movement which works in favor of the demiurge will give great importance to the need to destroy the self of the aspirants. For fusion with the demiurge to be successful, it is fundamental that the aspirant renounces his self. Once the self has been disintegrated, the empty shell into which the initiate has been converted will be quickly filled by the demiurge. This man has surrendered himself to the demiurge like a sacrificial animal, has attained nothingness, and the nothingness has been filled by this God. The goal of the God has been achieved. This man has come a long way to end up by dissolving himself in the one who created him. On the other hand, in initiations of the spirit, the aim is always to enlargement of the self and the accumulation of power. It's still interesting when you ask the question, what is the purpose of God? What is the purpose of a God? What is a God supposed to do? I mean, once it creates, what is it supposed to do? Does it just create? It's interesting. If the self does not exist, the spirit cannot manifest itself. Renouncing the self is to renounce the spirit. Thirdly, in initiations of the soul, there are talks about evolution, the future, and the progress. The soul has to evolve until it is fused with God. All creation evolves towards God. Mankind will continue to evolve until it becomes a universal communion of souls. The world gets better every day. On the contrary, in initiations of the spirit, there are talks about return and the past. The world is heading towards its deterioration and destruction. There is nothing good to look forward to in the future. The restoration of something that there was in the past is essential. In order to repair the great injustice carried out by the demiurge and his con men, it is necessary to go back to that past to deactivate everything, to liberate that which has to be liberated, and to destroy which that has to be destroyed. Fourthly, in initiations of the soul, one will hear talk of compassion, devotion, love, generosity, and service. Compassion for all beings created by the demiurge, love for the demiurge and other men, love of everything that the breath of divine life has brought into existence. This breath of divine life is no other than the breath of death. It's the breath of the demiurge. Service is about servicing other men and the masters of the White Lodge, and again, God, to restore the plan on earth. Also emphasized are blame and regret. On the other hand, in initiations of the spirit, the candidate is like a warrior who has decided total war on the force of matter. One does not hear talk of peace, but swords, the fight for freedom, taking the heavens by assault. That's exactly what it says that Jesus said. Says the gates of heaven are taken by the violent man. He said, I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring the sword, the separation. It is not above love, devotion, blame, nor regret, but duty, honor, and revenge. One has to take into account that the aspirant is spiritualizing. Aggressiveness and repulsion for all that is anti-spiritual and impure. Material and created increase within him. This is the natural hostility of the spirit towards the demiurge and his work. If the spirit felt love for the demiurge and his creation, it would not be a spirit. It would be a soul. The soul is pure love for the demiurge and his work. The spirit is pure hate for the God of this world and his work. The details which we have started here allow us to better identify which sides these people or religious groups which pretend to help others are on. When we listen to them or read their books, we will know straight away if they are with God or with the devil. In this era of darkness, in which only one hears talks about the fulfillment of the soul, of the power of the soul, or the perfection of the soul, it is good to remember that although persecuted and denied, liberation and fulfillment of the spirit also exist. Once the two possible kinds of initiation have been identified, we can go on to take a look at its other characteristics. In Gnostic initiations, the person receives certain secret knowledge. This is not any knowledge, but that which produces noticeable change in the aspirant. It is about special knowledge which has the power to transform the one who listens to it. This type of knowledge is of the most importance of the Gnostic. We have already seen that this is the meaning of Gnosis, knowledge itself. For every Gnostic, salvation is not achieved through faith, but through knowledge. This secret knowledge transmitted during initiation is not the end of the path, but the start. This knowledge has the power to wake up and urge the candidate on to his final goal, liberation of the spirit. Once received and studied, this knowledge gradually transforms the initiate in stages. To attain the radical change desire, the final transmutation by the spirit, the initiate will have to fight constantly and tirelessly. The memory and impact of the initiation will give him strength so that he never gives up or forgets his goal. In the old Gnostic work, recovered recently and given the title Temporic Protinia, it is said that initiation is the experience of knowledge, which brings spiritual fulfillment. It is also said that it is a process of ascension, which is defeat of the cosmos and consolidation of that which is true. The cosmos is the work of the demiurge, and that which is true is the spirit. It speaks of knowledge, which liberates and purifies men who seek the world of the spirit, and of men who walk in matter. It speaks of initiations and stages which gradually purify and smooth the path of ascent towards the spirit. In this book, the demiurge is called the great demon. There are usually three initiations. After the changes produced by the first initiation, and when he is considered to be prepared, the initiate will receive a second initiation, which will produce other kinds of changes in him. Then the third initiation will be carried out, which will completely smooth the path to his final transmutation. Another characteristic of initiations is that they can be individual or group. Up to now, we have spoken about individual initiations. When a man decides to pass through the threshold and be initiated, in the second case, it is now a people or an entire community whose members seek out this transformation as one. These cases are even more rare, but there have been several throughout the course of history. I think we have the opportunity here to make history. Another situation is self-initiation when the candidate feels he is ready and decides to initiate himself. There is also the case of initiations received during sleep. Who can raise their hand on that one? We will be looking at these last two cases in more detail later on. How would a Gnostic initiation have been carried out in former times? All the Gnostic books which describe the process have been destroyed. Let us have a look amongst the enemies of Gnosticism, who, on the other hand, were able to read these books. Irenaeus of Lyons was one of them. He wrote a book about 5 volumes called The Adversus Heresy. Against heresy is what it means. Only the first volume, which is quite easy to get a hold of, and in which Irenaeus mocks Gnostic ideas, has been translated. The other volumes are in Greek and Latin, hidden in some library, which is difficult to access. This is understandable since the second volume refers to the ideas of the great Gnostic Marcion, and it is not desirable that people get to know about his ideas or read his immortal works. Antithesis, for example. The enemies of Gnosis tried to make sure that no man could be enlightened by Marcon's work or awakened by it. It wouldn't be the case that one of the religions of the demiurge falls down. I want to say in this point too, there's a whole market. I'm not in that market. I can't afford what they pay for these books. But there are very rare volumes of the highest occult that go for millions of dollars amongst the very elite. I had an opportunity to see a book, and the price was millions of dollars. And now I know why. Gnostic knowledge, the real knowledge that is above the religions of the peoples. Religions are nothing more than the opiates. It keeps them asleep. I know, I was there. There are truths that I endeavor that we will all continue to try to get a hold of. And I hope one of us does out there. It'd be great. All right. But the third volume, the most well hidden, is the one which describes Gnostic initiation ceremonies. Wow. If these books against Gnosis, written by no less than Saint Irenaeus, full of slander and irony against Gnosticism, are so jealously guarded, what can we expect in the case of an authentically Gnostic book? Why is it that I say virtually none of us will ever be able to see what the true ceremonies are? Unless one of us can get really good in remote viewing, it's just some knowledge that you come to realize that it's never going to be on YouTube. It's never going to be on the internet. It's never going to be out there. It's not going to be on Facebook. They laugh at us because they see us as lapping dogs. We're ravenous for the knowledge. We know it exists, and they laugh and mock at us because they know none of us will obtain it, or maybe not. The great scholar in Gnosticism, Elaine Pagels, and had access to the third volume of Irenaeus of Lyons and her book, The Gnostic Gospels. She describes several details of Gnostic initiation. Pagels tells us that the aspirant is aware now that before he adored and served the demiurge, who up to that moment he had confessed with the true God. During the initiation ceremony, the aspirant addresses the demiurge, declaring his independence from him and from his creation, telling him that he now no longer belongs to his sphere of authority. Folks, this is almost word for word what I was saying. Weird. And that he has transcended all that. The initiate recognizes the unknowable God, rejects the authority of the Creator God and his commands, and declares that he has been forever liberated from the power of the demiurge. From this point on, his relationship with the demiurge will be completely different. You become an enemy. By means of the initiation, the initiate has radically changed his relation with the Creator God. He has separated himself from the demiurge and all creation. He has separated himself from his body and soul. He is now outside the laws which govern the world of matter and time. He is now outside everything except his spirit. Now, let us now return to the theme of self-initiation. There are men who have woken up a little and are desperately searching for the path of liberation of their spirits. Those men can initiate themselves and produce the transcendental change which can lead them to the spirit. Next, I will relate the formula of self-initiation, which I have developed and applied to myself. At night, in bed and ready to sleep, whoever so wishes can mentally repeat the following until they fall asleep. I want to separate myself from the Creator God and His creation. I want to separate myself from matter and time. I want to separate myself from my body and soul. I want to unite myself with my spirit. I want my spirit to be liberated. I want to be my spirit. I am my spirit. This formula of self-initiation produces incredibly striking results. However, it must be applied with care, at least at the start. It is better not to practice it every night. This type of nocturnal self-initiation leads us onto the cases in which initiations are received during sleep. In these cases, the aspirant moves out of his physical body, and the ceremony is carried out in other dimensions of the created universe. There are initiates who have received 1, 2, even 3 initiations during sleep. Others have received the first on the physical plane and the rest outside of it. Each case is unique. There are no two the same. During the initiation ceremonies carried out during sleep, the aspirant, although far away from his physical body, is fully conscious of what is happening. Not only initiations of the spirit, but also those of the soul can be received in other dimensions. Folks, this works both ways. In my 50 years of Christianity, particularly in the Pentecostal vein, many people reported walking with Jesus in their dreams, having angels come and minister to them. In my case, I was used in the gift, and I've had more than one of these beings. I know this exists, but that's from my personal experience. That's the only thing I can measure against. But I know that this is real. I know this is as real as it gets. The author says, in my case, I searched the world over and for many years for someone who could give me the true Gnostic initiation. In the end, I found that person had been living all those years less than 100 meters from my house. I had been searching distant countries for that which was within arm's reach. When I went and knocked on his door, I was told that he had left this world a short time ago. My disappointment was so great that I thought that the only way to get the authentic Gnostic initiation would to be initiate myself during sleep in other dimensions of the created world. Next, I'm going to relate one of the experiences that have happened to me. One night, during which I had been reading The Green Face, a book by Gustav Meyrink, before going to sleep, I mentally repeated, I want the liberation of my spirit. I want the liberation of my spirit. I want the liberation of my spirit, many times. And then I fell asleep. Half an hour had passed when a bright light woke me up. I kept my eyes closed, but could see a bright light. Everything around me was light. I slowly opened my eyes and realized that this intense light filled the whole room. I thought that someone had gotten into my house and put the lights on, but no, the lights were out. This was a different light. It was a strange light that I had never seen before. Without moving, I looked around the whole room and found that the light was coming from one of the corners. A beam of light was flowing out from the corner and had already filled the room, gushing forth like a bright mist which engulfed everything. Faced with this phenomena, such as these, we must try not to be afraid. Isn't it interesting that all these ghost hunters, they go out to see ghosts, and when they get an effect of a ghost, they all run? Like, well, what were you expecting? So if you go through this, now I haven't had this happen to me, But if you go through this and this happens, don't do what this dude did. Remember that fear does not exist for the spirit. The spirit is not afraid of anything because it is indestructible, immortal, and eternal. Another night, after reading a few pages of the book, The Theory of Eternal Life, by Rodney Collin, I resolved to mentally repeat the words, I want to receive the initiation of the Spirit, until I fell asleep. 40 minutes later, the same light as before woke me up, but now there were also two people in the room. I kept my eyes closed. Well, of course you did, but sensed that there were two men there next to my bed. Well, Beaver, there's no hiding under the covers this time. I thought, how could they have gotten in if the doors and windows are locked and only I have the key to the house? I was afraid to open my eyes, afraid to look at them, and afraid they would notice I had woken up. I heard a strange and powerful voice. You called us, and we have come, and now you're afraid. I kept my eyes shut and did not reply. I wanted to escape, but I was afraid that they would attack me if I tried. Next, I heard, you weren't fully prepared. And then, there is no other way. They immediately nailed into my head a kind of needle without giving me time to react or defend myself. I felt that they were injecting a kind of liquid into my brain, using what appeared to me to be a kind of metal syringe or something similar. Then I fell asleep. I don't think I dig that too much. Anyway, from that day on, I felt within me a sort of distance with respect to the world, and I knew without a doubt exactly what the goal was to which I had dedicated all my efforts for the rest of my life. I also noticed that my doubts and uncertainties about the most direct path to the Spirit had disappeared. Fear in a man is a sign that he is still identifying with the created world and its laws. And why not, folks? This demiurge, this God, this creator, this Elohim, this Yahweh, whatever you want to call it, is nothing to be messed with. It will kill you. And the thing about it is, its very presence injects fear. Doubt me? Believe it was the Apostle Paul said it's a terrible thing to be in the presence of the Lord. I didn't write it. A sign that he still loves matter, his body and soul, and does not want to lose them. For that reason, his separation from everything created must be gradual. As he progresses with the spiritualization, his fears diminishes. At the same time, as we have already said, his hostility towards the impure and the inferior increases. This is the proof that a man is becoming close to his spirit. Years later, I had a similar experience after many repetitions prior to sleep. The same light and the same men appeared. This time, the same voice said, now there is no fear. And next, they leant a strange instrument against my head, which emitted some sort of laser beam. A strange rhomboid shape symbol was then engraved on my head from the beam. After that second experience, less evasive than the first, I noticed that I was getting closer to my spirit without looking back or around me. The path had been completely smooth, transformed into a direct path, and now I only had to walk down it. The third initiation aims to ease and help with the final transmutation, the true salvation. Chapter 22, True Liberation of the Spirit. With what we have set up to now, we are in a position to reply to the three fundamental questions that man rarely ever asks himself in life. These three questions are: who am I? Why am I here? What must I do in this life? Who am I? Am I an uncreated and eternal spirit, chained up in the created and the ethereal body, soul, imprisoned in matter? Why am I here? Am I here to be used as a lab animal in a crazy, insane experience conceived by an inferior God? This plan requires an eternal spirit to be imprisoned in order to use its antimatter power to impel the evolution of this impure and mortal monstrosity called body soul. The power of a spirit is essential so that man can at some point achieve the final objective for which he has been created, his transformation into the demiurge. This antimatter energy, capable by itself of putting all creation in danger, is partly deactivated and diminished so as to be used safely. This is why the spirit must be chained up and confused, so that it contributes only an extremely small part of its potential to the sinister work of the demiurge. What must I do in this life? I must wake up. I must become aware of my real situation and find a way out. Then I must liberate myself and escape from this prison. Now that we have replied to the three questions, we will take a look at what Gustav Meyrink, the great initiated Gnostic who successfully went through this experience, has to say of the matter. Meyrink, in his most profound and extraordinary book, The Green Face, gives us the key to the process of liberation of the spirit. We shall go through this book. Let us review these issues here. Basically, they are a perfect answer to the third question we asked regarding what we must do. Afterwards, we will add various other points. Meyrink says the second birth is spiritual. The second birth is when the spirit liberates itself. The second spiritual birth leads us to eternal life. Meyrink gives us a technique and recommends a practice which we should adopt. You must ask the spirit, because the only one who can hear you is the spirit. You must talk to it. Ask only it. Here, Meyrink is, of course, relating that the unknowable God is very far from the common man and the demiurge, who could maybe hear him, is a judge who would never change his karmatic sentences to consent to an insignificant request by an insignificant man. All that remains is to ask the spirit. In the case of a man who has awoken up and liberated himself, things are different. He indeed will be able to change wills, laws, and destinies. But if a common man wants to be heard, he will have to talk to his spirit. Meyrink says, if you want to pray, pray to your invisible self. It is the only God who will listen to your prayers. He also adds, if you want to speed things up, ask your spirit to lead you to the great goal via the shortest path, and it will do so. So to progress towards this great goal, you don't have to look back or around you or get distracted. The attention must now be swayed by the many temptations in the world. You must keep your eye and will fixed on what the great goal is. Meyrink has given us some good ideas which we can put into practice at night. Once in bed and ready to sleep, we can mentally repeat sentences similar to the following. I want to unite myself with you, eternal spirit. I want to wake up. Lead me to the great goal. Without fail, the following morning, we will notice changes. But very few men speak to their spirit, yet most of them sleep like a log. For Meyrink, the liberation of the spirit is the only worthwhile thing a man can do in life. It is the only task that he should perform. There is no other single which justifies spending time on. All the rest are useless. This is the only task, indeed, the most important one, to which a man can dedicate his life. As the spirit is liberated, the body and soul of man are spiritualized by it. This is Meyrink's great goal, that the spirit transforms the body, that the body is spiritualized and is transmuted by the spirit. How awful it would be for the demiurge if this happened. He created the body and soul of man for another purpose, for them to resemble him, to transform into him. And now man ends up transforming into spirit. Not only has the prisoner freed himself, but furthermore, he is taking possession of a piece of the demiurge's work. This demiurge created man so that he would evolve until he was transformed into a manifestation channeled of himself, his creator. And suddenly man is transforming into the manifestation instrument of the spirit. The liberated spirit is snatching away his most important work and spoiling his plans. The demiurge created man so that he would admire and adore him. And the opposite has happened. The body and the soul of man have transformed by the spirit into a terrible opponent of the creator and his work. Meyrink says that as man is being transformed, he becomes aware of the absurdity of everything. He gradually notices that other men are nothing more than specters and ghosts, and that he himself has always been one too. A man transformed in this way feels the most awful solitude imaginable. But slowly, he will adapt himself to this new state. He will overcome all the inferior qualities and the solitude he felt at the start and will arrive in a new kingdom, wakefulness. Meyrink says that wakefulness is the awakening of the immortal and eternal self. Man has woken up and now there is no sleep for him. He is in a state of permanent wakefulness, like Cain, the immortal. Only the man who has woken up and is spiritualized becomes immortal and eternal. And not even the prala will be able to destroy him. But all this does not happen on its own. It is only a remote possibility. A supreme effort will have to be made to achieve it. Meyrink adds that when a spirit is liberated, all creation is liberated a little. When a body and soul are spiritualized and transmuted by the spirit, all creation is spiritualized to some extent. We say that the supreme Gnostic work affects the cosmos. Meyrink says the following: if one man is profoundly transformed, his work will never die. He will have opened a hole which will never be closed again. Although the others do not realize it, he will have ripped apart the net which keeps mankind a prisoner. According to Meyrink, when the spirit takes control, the man thus transformed can live in various dimensions at the same time, since he has altered space and time. He is a king in these worlds. He has made himself a king of all this creation. He can transport himself from one place to another, or he can be in various different places at the same time. Such is the power of the spirit. We read about this in the lessons from the masters of the Far East. They do this all the time. This is where our review of Meyrink's main Gnostic idea ends. Now we will take a look at the primordial Gnosis and tells us about this process of liberation of the spirit. In order to start the process, man must choose one of his selves, the strongest one, the one most similar to his spirit. The other selves do not matter. Only that one matters, the self of the spirit. There are many selves in every man, but only one corresponds to the spirit. The rest are selves of the soul. These latter ones encourage man to love God, to love his neighbor, turn the other cheek, share everything with others, cooperate in the work of God, etc. On the contrary, the self of the spirit is the greatest opponent to the creator and his creation. It is essentially to distinguish between the self that corresponds with the spirit and the unknowable God on one hand, and the other selves that true legions of devils on the other. St. Thomas said, distinguish to unite. And a Gnostic would say, distinguish to disconnect. Distinguished in order to better discriminate, to put everything in its place, accept the good and reject evil, accept that which wakes up and liberates us, and reject that which enchains and imprisons us. Distinguish to disconnect and separate the two irreconcilable, okay, you know what I mean, irreconcilable and sides engage in a struggle without man. Distinguished and separate to the end, and confusion to put everything where it belongs. The spirit in man represents the unknowable God. The body and soul of man represents the creator God. This is what we must distinguish between the good and the evil within man. We have already said that man has two paths ahead of him and must choose one of them, the path of the spirit or path of the soul. Enlarge the self or renounce it. Be a reflection of the unknowable God or of the demiurge. Whoever chooses the path of the soul will be dissolved in the demiurge. Whoever chooses the path of the spirit will have to face the demiurge and fight him face to face with the only way to liberate the spirit. Sounds like we have some training here. Going to be a fight. What was the song? Going to be a showdown. Yeah. In this final battle, the demiurge will be a great solient force, also called the Kundalini, the demiurge in man. If the warrior fails, there will be no second chance in that Mantrara, excuse me. His self will probably be disintegrated into 1,000 pieces. What? The warrior will die or go crazy. There are many such cases in mental hospitals, warriors beaten by the Kundalini force of the demiurge. In the best cases, he will be converted into a permanent worshiper of the Creator or a master of the White Lodge. On the other hand, if the self of the spirit is strong enough, it will be able to defeat the demiurge's Kundalini and liberate the spirit forever. The warrior will lose conscious for a short time and will resurrect later as spirit. Furthermore, the warrior will be able to seize the Kundalini force and use it against the demiurge himself. There have also been cases in which the warrior has been so imbued with spiritual power that the demiurge Kundalini refuses to fight against him. And the warrior, by various means, makes him appear and fight. In this final battle, so essential and definitive, the warrior could lose everything during the Manvantara, or win everything for eternity. Which warrior would not be anxious about getting involved in this battle? If the warrior is successful, he manages to build a bridge to the spirit and liberate it from the prison in matter, attaining true salvation. Two paths appear in front of him again. He has defeated the demiurge and has caused an upheaval in the whole universe, and he again finds himself in possession of an inherent powers of the spirit, infinitely superior to those of the Creator God. But he will once again have to choose between two possibilities. One of these paths is to return to the kingdom of the unknowable God from which he came and never return to the hell of the demiurge. In that case, He will go back to what he was before his imprisonment in matter. The other path, which most of the liberated spirits opt for, is to stay in this world to fight for the liberation of the other captive spirits. Therefore, the successful warrior either abandons his body and soul forever and returns to the world from which he came, or decides to stay here and carry on the fight for the liberation of the prisoners of the demiurge. If he decides to stay, he will have converted himself into a savior of mankind and the world, an immortal, an eternal Deya, a new member of the Black Order of Warriors of the Spirit. When the liberated spirit chooses to stay in hell of the demiurge to continue the fight until the last of the enchained spirits have been liberated, he will have to use his body and soul as instruments. But his old body and soul, created by the demiurge, is not suitable to contain a spirit which has broken out of the chains and regained its powers. They would immediately be disintegrated. First, the spirit will have to transform his body and soul. Originally impure, made for mortal demiurgic matter, the body and soul will be transmuted into divine, the indestructible Vajras, become pure and glorious. They will form only one entity with the spirit, inseparable, indissoluble for the whole of eternity. Well, the spirit will in this way be converted by Vajra, the divine matter, which will allow it to act and to travel through space and time in the plane of the demiurge, and at the same time produce synchronistic phenomena almost constantly. Vajra, resulting from the transformation of impure matter by the liberated spirit, is as red as blood and harder than diamond. The Vajra is indestructible and eternal. It cannot be destroyed by the demiurge when a Manvatra ends. The triumphant spirit has seized from the demiurge part of his creation, a body and a soul, and has transformed them into divine matter over which the demiurge has no control. The created has been transmuted into the uncreated by the power of the spirit. The demiurge created the body and soul of man to be used as a prison cell for the spirit, and the liberated spirit now ends up using them as tools to oppose the demiurge's work and plans. The time of the spirit's revenge has arrived. We have said that the spirit has become only one divine entity with the body and soul. Now it will always be spirit, soul, body for all eternity. This eternity will have the same physical features as did the warrior at the time of his transformation: young, old, blonde, dark, the same physical features that he had at the time of his transmutation into divine matter of indestructible Vajra. Think yourself young, you'll be young. In this process of liberation and triumph of the spirit, it is said that the body and soul have died and have been subsequently resurrected. The spirit has saved them and has integrated them into self. The spirit, now covered by body soul of Vajra, has also become different to the other spirits. It will never again be the same as it was before its imprisonment by the demiurge, a free spirit of the unknowable plane. It has decided to stay in the demiurgic hell and be invested with indestructible Vajra for all eternity. From now on, Vajra will always be the distinguishing mark and characteristics featured of the spirit, the perfect proof of its triumph over the satanic demiurge that have distinctive sign of its transmutation into savior of mankind and the world. The body and soul, deified and incorporated by the Spirit, will be the trophy which the Spirit will flaunt eternally as a souvenir of its triumphant passage through the perverse world of the created matter. There isn't an ancient Gnostic text in which Genesis is narrated from the point of view of the serpent Lucifer, which disappeared 1,600 years ago and was miraculously recovered in the 20th century in the Nag Hammadi in Egypt. In the text called the Testimony of Truth, there is mention of the influence of the liberated spirit on the kingdom of the demiurge. In some of the Nag Hammadi texts, we are told about the resurrection of the body after death. Only a liberated and victorious spirit can provide true resurrection and salvation. In the Christian myth, there are clear references to the work of the Spirit, proof of the Gnostic origin of this religion. When we are told that they went to look for the body of Christ in the tomb and did not find it, they are clearly saying that his body was a Vajra and that it had left with the Spirit. In other words, it was about a true Savior of man and of the world. This is the best proof. If we want to know if a guide for mankind is an authentic messenger or Savior, the best thing that we can do is go and look for the body in the tomb. If we cannot find it, it is because the body of the Vajra has left with the Spirit in perfect union. Furthermore, it has never been stated in Christianity that Christ was merged with God or united with God. On the contrary, it was always maintained that Christ is with his body, seated at the right hand of God. When they say with his body, we can add a Vidra. These references are clear. Christ is a separate entity, and the God to which they are referring cannot be the creator God of this world. The liberated and triumphant spirit enters the unknowable plane. It will always do so with its new body of red Vidra, from which the spirit will not be able to separate itself for the whole of eternity. A man reborn in this way is born twice without death, immortal and eternal. Such a man, who has liberated himself from the demiurge and his chain of reincarnations, who has definitively broken away from everything created and impure, will always cause an immense upheaval in the created universe. When the spirit liberates itself, all creation is liberated a little. When the spirit manages to liberate itself and defeat the demiurge in a face-to-face confrontation, the latter loses power, and the ties that imprison the other spirits become weaker as well. When a spirit has decided to stay in the hell of the demiurge, it will fight tirelessly until the spirits have been liberated, and will continue to fight until the demiurge weakens, ends his perverse breaths of the Manfratras and Pralas, until he can no longer create anything and ends up disappearing. In this way, all duality will have disappeared, and the world will go back to being only one, the eternal kingdom of the true and unknowable God. Well, there you go. Da 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 da. All right. Join me on Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to having Marcia and Tina on this, because they're the ones who led me to the book. And I checked, Marcia, and I did have it in my library. But, for every time there is a right time, that's what the birds sing. For everything, turn. But anyway, so heavy book. Each of us are on our own different paths. Many of us have arrived here never even being exposed to this kind of material. We arrived here on our own. And what amazes me, folks, is how many of us have arrived at almost what seems to be the same time. There is this cosmic conversion of, all I can say, and I know this may sound a little odd, but what I would say are already liberated souls. I think the vast majority of us, let's see what this, well, thank you, Tina. That's so nice of you. Thank you. But seriously, I contend a vast amount of us, I think, are already, we've done the sleep initiation. We figured it out. Knowingly or unknowingly, we stumbled upon the Gnostic knowledge that things ain't right in here and we don't fit here. We don't fit in this world. We don't fit in. And many of us have gone, thank you, David Barry. Just describe. Well, brother, I think we've been all walking hand in hand. It is through those, we've gone through hell. We've known this. And the tenacity of some of us frighten every arc on that's out there. Again, I think many of us are already self-initiated. I personally do believe that. Can't, he's programmed. But let's go out. Yeah, James, I'm right there with you. James, right. I'm right out there. I think we can do this. I had this thought. I was just kind of channeling to Brian and trying to get some take on this, but I think there has been a shift. Now, when all of us get to that point of the transmuting to the other side, they say that there is that in-between place. I tell you, I think that there is many of us waiting there. I'm convinced of this. There's senses, the sense that I am getting is that our numbers are building bigger and bigger and bigger. Not so much in this plane, but in that astral plane. I think many of us, when we cross over, they're going to go, well, how you been? Didn't we just see you a couple of days ago? Well, no, I actually made the transmutation. I kind of went from the life thing, No. We see you here all the time. So here's what my thought is. When Marcia and Tina get on Wednesday, I think we're going to talk about, and David Barry, if you want to join us, it'd be great. Really would like to get into an in-depth discussion on the different techniques that we have used, all of us have used, in our own self-initiation, our own sleep initiations. I have a sense that's what happened to a lot of us a couple of years ago, when whatever the heck happened, where I was waking up on the almost the second of 3 a.m. Couldn't go back to sleep. So I started learning to, use the time writing, meditating. And as many of you know, that went on for almost like a year and a half. Don't have it because now I do it automatically. It's like I was telling Lynn, I was tossing and turning because last night was just strange. A lot of energies at work. And for the first time, I couldn't remember any of my dreams, and I can remember many of them. I think this is part of the process. So anyway, folks, thank you, Susie. Yeah, hit the like button. We love that. But I'd like to really get into this discussion because if we did this as a group, let's say there's 100 of us in the chat. We'll bring all the family, right? Yeah, right. But, those of us who know that we have gone through our own self-initiations, I know many of you have. I know that. You can't be a practicing witch, sorcerer, wizard, even into the gifts of our sixth senses, seeing into the future, being an empath. I mean, many of these things set us apart. And I tell you, I think through our lifetimes, we have gone through these initiations. And I think many of us have gone through levels of intense initiations. At least that's what it feels like to me. All right. I've loved this today, folks. This has just been fantastic. Thank you all for being here. Y'all are just beautiful people. I'm just telling you, you're just absolutely beautiful. I love the energy. Even in times when we have disagreements, it's all right. We're going to disagree, And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as we can come and say, okay, well, you might have a point. She has a good point. Yeah, I can see that. And say, that's cool. And we go on to the next topic, next discussion. Thanks, John. I'm appreciative of that. See, so many of you people, so many of you, you know this. Tells me, folks, we're on to something. I mean, we may not be the brightest bulbs in the pack, but we outshine all the rest. That's all I got to say. All right. Much love to y'all. Speaking favor, healing over us, nothing missing, nothing broken. And I look at that. That's what prosperity means. That means there's nothing missing, nothing broken in your life. And I see prosperity as regaining all of my memories. Lynn and I were talking last night, and she says, you know, hon, she said, I really don't think you would really want to have that memory of your birth. And I said, why is that? She says, well, you know, I've helped deliver over 1,000 babies in her career. And she said, I just don't think you really want to remember that. And, you know, my wife's a very wise woman. And I happen to think that she may be right. That might be one of the things we may not want to remember. But I want to remember all that I can. I want to remember prior. I want to remember that moment as I came through the blood veil. I mean, it's the rite of initiation of the birthright. See, this is why I know that this book, I don't care about the author. Listen, all books are either channeled or written through inspiration. But what I find interesting is that this does happen. I see it all the time. I mean, again, I've gone through this. We all have. And I think there's something going on here. I really do. Maybe we could be the first group, and who knows, maybe join other channels. I mean, this is a pretty heavy book. I agree with you. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get through it, it'd be interesting to see what would be a group self-initiation do. Wow. You think we could rip a hole in the space-time continuum? Whoop. Now that would be cool. So anyway, all right, folks. I'll stop saying see you later. Basto, David Hall. Thank you. Thok, thank you. All right. Here we go. I'll see y'all tomorrow with Miss Trina on a second look. Have a great day, folks. All right. Bye-bye.